On Friday of this week, we're going to get the May jobs report for the United States, and hopefully it has better news than the April jobs report, which was way under what officials thought it would be, what economists said it needed to be to show that the United States is actually in some kind of economic recovery. But here's the thing. What we have right now with these jobs reports that have come out showing that a lot of people aren't going back to work yet, we do have a crisis here in the United States, but it's not a worker crisis. It's a good paying jobs crisis here in the United States. And honestly, it's a crisis that's been going on for a very long time. But unfortunately, for the longest time, people didn't really have a way of fighting back. You know, they still had to go to those jobs. They still had to make that money to help support themselves. It wasn't enough to completely support themselves, but they still had to do it. Right now, in a lot of areas, they do still have the option of remaining on unemployment, which still has that extra $300 per week as part of the stimulus. But then you have Republican governors who are intentionally being cruel to these workers, saying we're taking away the extra unemployment benefits, leaving you with virtually nothing, forcing you to go back to these low-paying jobs just so our economic numbers can look better. Sure, more people working looks better on paper. But we're not talking about a real recovery here, and that's been the problem with all of the economic recoveries that we have had since the year 2000, because we have been in a nonstop cycle of recession, recovery, recession, recovery. But the recovery has never happened for the American people. But they had never had a taste of what it was like to not have to struggle for a little bit, or to be able to pay their bills for a little bit like they have during the pandemic, during this time of increased unemployment benefits. And it's not their fault that they don't want to return to not being able to pay their bills, to not being able to support their family, to not being able to afford medication. The blame for this lays squarely at the feet of employers. Whether it's a mom and pop business not paying their employees enough, or whether it's a massive corporation not paying their people enough, it runs the gamut. From big corps to small, from 5 employees to 5,000 employees. Doesn't matter how big your business is. If you're paying poverty wages, you're doing it so you can put more money in your pocket. And I've heard the arguments, oh, well, the small business, they can't rely on, they can't pay people more because then they'll go out of business. They don't make enough. I'm sorry. That sucks, but it sounds to me like a bad business model. If your business model, if your profit margin relies on you paying people poverty wages, then that's a bad business model. And you have nobody to blame for that except yourself. We have seen what happens when the minimum wage increases. We have seen what happens with corporations and businesses, small businesses, when they raise their minimum wage to $15 an hour, the ice cream parlor. We've all seen that story. They raised their wage to $15 an hour. They had thousands of applicants. So it's not that we have a lazy workforce that wants to sit at home and live off the government. That's not the case. That Republicans are telling us. That's not true. What's happening is that we have businesses in this country, large and small, that want to socialize the problems, but privatize the profits. And when I say socialize the problems, here's what I mean. When somebody gets paid a poverty wage, when they don't make enough money to buy food for themselves or their family, what happens? They go on federal assistance. They get food stamps. We pay for that. They can't afford health care or their job doesn't offer it. They go on Medicaid. We pay for that. We, the taxpayers in this country, are already subsidizing the problems of these low-wage jobs. But we don't get any of the benefits. We don't get any of those profits. The business owners do. And like I said, that's a bad business model. We do not have a shortage of workers here in the United States. We do not have a problem with people in the United States just being lazy and not wanting to do it. We have a shortage of good-paying jobs, and that is what continues to kill the United States economy. And the Republican plan to just strip these unemployment benefits, force people back into work, again, it looks good on paper. It looks like, oh, our jobs numbers are up. But you still have people that can't feed themselves, they can't afford medication, they can't afford basic necessities. That's not economic recovery. That's systemic poverty. And that's what we're dealing with in the United States today.